Hello, everyone. This is Gary from Gary's Place. Welcome to Gary's Place. So, I want to talk to you guys today about some squeaking issues I had. Okay. Number one was I was having a little bit of, I don't know if you want to call it like a flapping noise. And I figured out that this adjustment for the belt here needs a little bit of a tweak. Okay, so these need to be loosened. We need to put tension back on the belt, but we need to make sure that this mount is straight. Otherwise, during quick motions back and forth, especially on long distances, you will get a little bit of a belt flap right here, and sometimes it'll flap fast enough, especially if you get a lot of vibration from quick movements, to rub against the edge of the extrusion if this isn't square, which, as you can see, I still have to straighten mine out. It did take me a minute to kind of figure out what was going on there. Okay, and then another one I had was I was doing a print that had a lot of circles, and as it went around, you know, obviously I've got my speed turned up to about 60. Okay, so it's going around in a circle, and the bed's moving back and forth. Okay, and every once in a while, the bed would give this little squeak kind of rattle. It was just this awful noise, driving me crazy. Okay, so let me push this back here, and I'll show what I've got here. Okay, so sorry about the mess, guys. Apparently I gotta give this a good wipe down, which is always a good idea, by the way. Some of that dirt down there can it can slow things up. It can cause you extra vibrations. It could cause some slippage of the pulleys there, so always a good idea. Now, the problem that I was having was twofold. Okay, so if you can look down here, sorry, it's focusing on my hand now. Let me put my hand down here. So if you look down here with the way that this is connected, okay, so I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's kind of like an uplift right here where this connects on both sides. So the belt doesn't go straight, it kind of goes upward. And then, if you can see this, I've got this belt finally very well aligned. However, that is something that I would suggest if you've got, if you got some spare time, getting this belt as straight as possible will solve a lot of problems for you guys: vibrations, noises, and skippings. So if you look at this pulley here, see how the belt sits pretty much perfectly in it. So if you don't have this aligned properly, what's going to happen is when your bed's at its farthest or closest point to this pulley, it'll veer off this way depending on what angle you have it wrong at. And then the little ribs here will start to make a rib noise up against the edges of this pulley, well, bearing, sorry. And there was a lot of things I had to do to adjust this thing properly. Now, the easiest thing, if this will work for you, is to loosen these two, okay? And then you need to make sure that this plate is actually straight, because if you have one side turned in too far, your plate or your bearing or pulley will be cocked. Or if you have it the other way, it's going to be cocked the other way. So you got to make sure this is straight. And now the other thing that you have to make sure is that this pulley is aligned to, let me get my hand out of the way, is aligned to this bracket. And then you also, which this is another issue that caused lots of problems for me, have to make sure that that pulley is also aligned to all of them. And the downside of this is there's no adjustment in that bracket, unfortunately. we have two adjustments on this, and I'll talk about them in just a minute. But there's another point of this that I wanted you guys to see. You see how the pulley on the motor is quite a bit larger than the belt. Now the reason that that causes a problem is because it allows the belt to walk that whole distance back and forth. So when I push this back, well, it looks like I got this pretty well aligned now, but you know, when you push it in one direction, it'll move all the way to one side and then ride on that inside of that pulley, or it'll ride all the way to the other side when you go to the other side of the extent of the bed, and then rub on that side. So aligning that is done in two ways. We have to align this pulley straight to that pulley, okay? And I hope you guys don't have to do this, but it's a real big pain. Then we need to take off the glass bed, but we need to take it off here. So we need to undo all four of these adjusters and just take the whole thing right out of the way. And then you will get to that bottom plate here. Let me see if I can get a good angle on this. Okay. You see those two screws right there? Let me get my finger out of the way. The two screws back there go to this bracket, which actually has a lot of adjustment to it. And what you need to do is you need to make this bracket straight and even with that pulley. So if you get the bracket straight and even with that pulley, and then you get this bracket straight, and this pulley straight, and this pulley perfectly aligned with that pulley, then you're in business. Okay? Now I had a secondary issue, which I don't know how much of a problem this was causing, but to me, things have to be right. So, we have the three wheels here. There's one back here, and there's one on that side. Now, if you guys can see, there are centrics on these pulleys, and that's to tighten these three pulleys onto this extrusion. So it's just grabbing it, and then when you turn the centric, it's pulling it tight. So there's no slack. Okay? Now where I ran into a problem was when I do this, I tighten this pulley. So I tighten this centric here. Right? Sorry about the camera work. See if we can get you to refocus. There we go. Okay. So I tighten this centric, and then I like to turn the wheels with my fingers. Now when you tighten these properly, you want them to be just tight but not too tight, but just tight enough to where when you turn this wheel, it moves the carriage. And you need to do this on both sides too. Now the problem that I ran into was I would tighten this, and when I spun this wheel just spun freely. When I spin this wheel, it would move the carriage. And then when I'd spin the wheel back here, it would also move the carriage. And no matter how tight I got this centric, this wheel was still loose. So while I had everything apart, I went ahead and I loosened this nut. You'll have to hold the Allen, because there's an Allen screw head on the other side of this wheel. And this is a lock nut, so you'll have to hold this end so you can loosen that end. I loosened the tension on this centric. And then I pushed this wheel all the way over while, it's a little messed up, but I pushed this wheel over while holding the Allen wrench on it, and then tighten that nut down. And I'll be honest with you guys, it is not the most comfortable spot to be in, but it definitely fixes the problem. Now when I give this centric up here a tighten, now if I use my finger with all 3 wheels, it moves the whole carriage. And then I had to do the same thing on that side, and then I had to make my adjustments to the whole carriage. It took a little bit. It took a little bit of fiddling around. However, it was definitely well worth it. It got rid of all my squeaks, and I am happy printing again. So I hope this helps you guys. It's not a bad idea to check the wiggle of your bed every once in a while. Check to make sure everything's working well. I have been thinking about buying an extra set of these wheels just because I know it's only a matter of time before this thing's going to need them. The bearings in these are kind of garbage anyways, so. Oh, and guys, one last thing I forgot to mention. I went ahead and printed out my own spacers that I designed. They're on Thingiverse. I left them in the link of another video. When I first installed this E3D clone hot end, that was when I had the Fang still on here. But I printed these out because I put some metal washers in there for the time being because I didn't have these at the time. I hadn't created them and I couldn't print them at the time because I had everything torn apart. So I did different sizes. 1.5 millimeter was the right size for me. I put one below, or I'm sorry about the focus there. I put one below, one on top. There's a groove in these. They're not just straight washers. There's a groove in them for the spring to sit in. And I do apologize for anybody who downloaded those before. I myself was not able to fit them through the stud that comes down from this plate. So I had to widen the holes out a little bit and change some things around, but I've updated them since. If anybody who's had issues with those, if you want to go ahead and download those, these are the new ones and they do work because they're on my printer, and they bring the bed up just high enough so that I can use my whole setup here. That's that. Hope this helps somebody out. If you like the content, please hit subscribe below. If you have any comments, please, by all means, leave me some comments. I like to get a conversation going if I can. And happy printing, guys. So thanks for stopping at Gary's place, where you're always welcome. Take care.